Hello, and thank you for joining us for the latest installment of the Manufacturers Efficiency webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking about waste costs for manufacturers and titling this one Dumpster Diving, Finding Savings in Your Waste Expenses. I'm Rich Bello. I'm a strategic partner, aka franchisee with Schooley Mitchell. We're the largest cost reduction consulting firm in North America. Joining me on the call today are Matt Wiseman. He's a Focal Point business coach, and Gina Tabasso. She's the owner of Barracuda B2B Marketing. All three of us have had success and focus our businesses in the manufacturing sector. So that's why we've decided to get together and put together this webinar series to try and help folks that are in manufacturing and our different specialty areas. So an agenda of what we're going to talk about today, the first thing I want to discuss are the different types of waste that we encounter in manufacturing. It's not just your regular garbage and recycling. We have some other forms as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The key here question is in regards to what we're going to discuss is the cost, because we know that the cost of waste is not going down and it's not particularly low, generally speaking. So we're going to discuss some of the reasons for that first off. And then the third thing, of course, what we're all interested in here is some of the techniques and strategies to try and bring those costs down and at least make them more manageable and more importantly, more fair for manufacturers. So the first topic, as I discussed, is the types of waste. So of course we do have garbage and recycling that you're typically going to have in your dumpsters outside of your facility. But in addition to that, we're also looking at hazardous waste materials, whether it's paints or liquids or chemicals that are used for your machines or for your processing. It could include different metals. It could include anything that you're compacting, using a compactor for to crush down. And then it also could include some construction based waste. Things like that are larger bins, like 30-yard roll-offs, or even wood, different things that could come across when we're talking about manufacturing. In regards to the cost, why it costs so much, the main thing and what we've seen the most at Schooley Mitchell is number one here, which is price creep. And that, generally speaking, is when a vendor will, little by little, month by month, gradually increase the cost of a service so that it's death by a thousand cuts, so to speak. The interesting part with regards to manufacturing is that's not always the case. A lot of times what we see is, especially as you get to the end of a contract year or a contract term overall, it's a big jump in the price. And I've seen it as much as 25% just from one month to the next, because it's the end of the year. The hauler just decides, okay, we need to increase the price dramatically. And a lot of the times there's nothing built into the contract that puts any type of inflation cap on those increases. And if that doesn't exist, then the hauler will take full advantage and they will increase the price by a lot. So that's the big one. Two, another one that we see very frequently are a couple different fees. One is an overage fee, and that's any time that your size of dumpster is overflowed and it's not containing all of the waste that you have before your next pickup. So anytime that happens, if the lid won't close fully, the hauler is generally going to charge an overage fee for that. And those can get to be very pricey over the course of a year, especially if it's happening regularly. In addition to the overage fees, haulers have what they call contamination fees. And what that means is anytime you have, usually the way it'll be set up is the garbage, the trash dumpster is right next to the recycling dumpster. Anytime that there's a crossover and regular waste gets put into the recycling bin or vice versa, they call that a contamination fee, and they're going to charge extra for that if they're seeing that happen on their pickups and once they're sorting through the waste. So that's something that that we always look out for and try to make sure we could get corrected as quickly as possible so you don't continue to incur those expenses. Another one, which I find to be very interesting because it's strictly a business move by the haulers, and specifically Waste Management, we see this with a lot. They call it the recyclable materials offset fee. And essentially what that is because the rate that haulers are able to get when they try and resell recyclable materials that they get from their customers, and they try and sell it back on the global commodities market, they're not getting as much back as they once did because that market fluctuates, as all markets do. So as a way to try and make themselves whole, the hauler that is, they'll charge an extra fee to their customer to try and make up for what they're losing when they try and resell those recyclable materials. So again, that's completely profit-driven fee, and it's something that when you have the conversation with the hauler, it's usually something that can at least be negotiated down to a more consumable fee, I would say. Other reasons for the cost being so high with waste is number 3 here, container sizes and pickup frequency. I talked about it a little bit in regards to the overage fees. If your container size isn't big enough or you're not getting the dumpsters emptied by the hauler enough per week, that's going to result in those overage fees. So that's something that is worth looking at and seeing, should we add another dumpster or a bigger dumpster, or should we add another pickup per week? So that's something to keep an eye on, and that's a way to lower those costs of the additional fees by making sure that you have the right size and the right pickup frequency. It works the same way on the opposite end. If you're getting your pickup, say 2 or 3 times a week, and you find every time the truck comes, there's hardly anything in your dumpster, that frequency is probably too high. So you keep an eye on that and try and get it to the right level. And that level may change throughout the year based on how busy your facility is. So that's something to keep an eye on in terms of trying to limit costs. The other thing with regards to container sizes, specifically, I talked about construction waste and those 30-yard roll-offs. Those really big bins, like the 30-yarders, they get very full, obviously, and they weigh a lot. So that's another fee that the haulers will charge called tonnage. So for how much your waste weighs, they charge a specific rate per ton. So that's something that can also add up if you're doing a lot of waste over the course of time. So in regards to how you're able to get better rates and not pay as much on your waste, there's 3 things that we kind of lay out in terms of a strategy. And the first is to know what it is that you're actually spending. And that comes down to essentially making sure that you're keeping a detailed ledger of all of the expenses in regards to your waste. So that's the base cost, that's any overage fees, that's any contamination fees, any of these other fees that the hauler is incurring or is charging on your company. You want to know what those are so you could have a baseline set, and any actions that you take moving forward, you could compare to that baseline and make sure that whatever you do is going to help you save some money. Number 2 is probably the most important part, and it's actually talking to your hauler and to other haulers as well. And a lot of times this could be a little bit uncomfortable, especially if you have a relationship with whoever your account rep is at the hauler. You've been working with them for a long time. you might not want to broach this subject, but it's something that has to be done if you want to lower those costs. And a lot of the times, like I said earlier, just having the conversation, especially around those renewal terms or at the end of the year, that's going to allow you to lock in a more reasonable rate before a huge price creep or increase comes. So having those negotiations, conversations with your current hauler, with other haulers, is going to help you in the long run. And number three is, after identifying what you're spending on and why you're spending it, and then having the conversations, getting proposals for better rates, you have to make a choice on one of those options, and on taking the measures to improve on the way that you're using the service. And that means making sure that you're separating the garbage from the recycling, and making sure that your pickup frequency is at the right timing so you're not getting overages, and all of those things. So you want to implement those things, and by having the baseline set, you'll be able to track what your actual savings are. The thing that I always mention with regards to these steps to take and to try and lower these costs is that it does take time, and it takes someone that's going to be dedicated to this type of project, and is going to be able to expend that time to do it properly and to get the results that you're hoping for. And that's something that we do at Schooley Mitchell for our clients. We do all of those steps that I just mentioned, and we do them in an in-depth fashion and take that off the plate of our clients so that they don't have to worry about spending the time that it takes to do this properly. But the steps, to go a little bit more in depth on each of the three that I just mentioned, you want to know what you're dealing with at the beginning, and that's the baseline prices, what I was talking about in the last slide, tracking what you're spending, why you're spending it. And at Schooley Mitchell, that's one of the first steps that we take whenever we work with a client, is creating what we call a baseline report. And that's going to show exactly what the client is paying at the beginning of any project that we're doing with the client, so that they know where things stand and we know what to measure against moving forward once we take those other steps. Negotiating with the suppliers, like I said earlier, it's not always the most fun thing to do, and it's not always the easiest thing to do, because one of the hardest things when you're talking to a vendor is you don't know what the going rate is unless you're going to survey all of your peers at other companies or even in other industries. It's hard to know exactly what the going rate is and what the market will bear with regards to waste costs. So the thing that we have at Schooley Mitchell is a database of all of the deals we've negotiated with all of our clients. It's over 30,000 clients now over the last 20 plus years. So we have that knowledge when we speak to suppliers of where they can go. The exact same suppliers that most companies are dealing with throughout the US and Canada, we've worked with them before with other clients. We know what they could do in terms of their discounts and in terms of the rates. So we bring that knowledge to the table when we have the discussion with those clients. And that's the major bargaining power, negotiating power that we have, that we're able to bring to clients and get them better costs. And then the third part, in terms of implementing budgets, and obviously we always want to set a budget and keep within that budget. When you have the ability to track what you're spending each month in any given cost category, of course we're talking about waste today, when you know exactly what you're paying, when you know that you're looking in depth at those bills every month to make sure you're paying what you're supposed to be paying, it makes it a lot easier to stay within that budget, because there aren't any curveballs, there aren't any off-the-wall charges that you weren't expecting or that weren't projected or budgeted for. So makes it a lot easier to stay within budget when you have that plan in place. So I wanted to talk about a few examples of what Schooley Mitchell has done with manufacturing clients in regards to waste expenses. The first one is Gupta Permold Corporation. They do aluminum casting and CNC machining for patented and branded consumer goods. They're based out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They're a big company globally. They're very successful. We looked at waste for them. They were spending just under $12,000 a year on their waste costs. We were able to go in, do the negotiations, do an entire analysis for them, and we found them over $4,000 a year in savings. So over a third of their costs we were able to reduce for them through this whole analysis process that we implement with Schooley Mitchell. Another example, Monmouth Rubber and Plastic. They're based right here in New Jersey, in Long Branch is where their facility is. They make closed cell sponge rubber and plastic foam products, also competitive globally. Again, we looked at their waste. They were spending over $30,000 a year, and we were able to help them save over $15,000 a year, so over 50% of a reduction in their cost after our analysis was done. And their president, John Bonforti Jr., just had a quote here from him. You're able to read it, of course, or pause this if you like to go through it all. But I thought the key part of what he said was kind of what I was talking about earlier, the part in bold about how when Schooley Mitchell was doing this work for their company, they were able to focus on what their business is about and what they want to do to be profitable and be successful and not have to worry about this cost reduction analysis that we were handling for them. A little bit more about Schooley Mitchell, our company. Like I said earlier, we've been in existence for over 20 years. The key facts, I think, on this slide is bullet point number 2 there. We don't get any commission from vendors. So it's not like we go into an analysis with a client and are trying to push them to one specific vendor because we're going to get a kickback or we're going to get some sort of commission by doing so. That doesn't exist in our business model. Our sole intention and purpose is to find the best deal for the client that's going to make their process better and more efficient. We have over it's actually 300 offices across the US and Canada, over 600 million in savings. And another key part about the way we do our work, we're never just coming in to try and switch the vendor and find whoever the cheapest vendor is. We're going to find the best fit for our client, regardless of what the results of that are. At the beginning, we're going to do that baseline report. Like I said, we're going to identify the setup of our client and make sure that whatever we recommend to the client is going to fit that setup. We're going to negotiate with the vendors. We're going to make a presentation to our client with our recommendations for savings. And then once the client chooses to move forward with one of those recommendations, we're going to do the implementation for them. In summary, we talked about waste being a volatile expense, probably not going to be going down in costs anytime soon. I know in New Jersey here, it's not limitless landfills. They are filling up, and that's just going to help the cost to continue to rise for waste. But there is ways to keep these costs down by doing this in-depth analysis that we've talked about here today. Here are our QR codes. If you'd like to talk in depth with any of us, free of charge, of course, to have a conversation, feel free to visit one of our websites and set up a time to chat with us. We'd be happy to talk to you. And then just a couple save the dates for upcoming webinars. We're going to have Gina talking about Lean Six Sigmaing your marketing in April. Matt's going to address employee turnover in May. And then I'll be back in June to talk about maintaining efficiency with your compressed gas usage. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you do have questions, again, feel free to reach out to us and contact us. We'd love to talk to you and help you in any way that we can. Thanks again for joining us today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.